The boss of Google Stadia says we're out of game development. The boss of Amazon says we're all in. What does this mean for cloud gamers? Let's talk after this. Hello and welcome once again to CloudBurst, the next generation in discussion shows. I'm Rokk, and if you're interested in cloud gaming and intelligent conversation, you're in the right place. Each week, we tackle one big cloud gaming question, no holds barred and no platform left unturned. Before I introduce my panel for today, please subscribe if you're new here, hit like, and check out Team Rokk membership by tapping the join button. My panel are well-known and highly respected content creators, each renowned for deep insight, wide knowledge, and a long list of achievements. So let's introduce our cloud-bursting panelists today, Avery, Chase, Clive, Duncan, and Lloyd. Avery, how has your week been?
It's another beautiful week in paradise. We've been dealing with some snow here on the East Coast, but it's not, a little bit of snow here and there. I brushed off my car. I went to grab some KFC. I'm good. Life's fine.
That's perfect. Clive, how's yours been?
No, I'm envious now. Wiping snow off and grabbing a KFC. That's living the dream. That's living the dream.
That's living all right.
I'm stuck in my box. I'm stuck in this box like Andy Morphs. Yeah. No, it's good though. I like being stuck in a box. Yeah.
Lloyd, you're looking more like Grizzly Adams as the weeks progress.
Yeah, it just keeps getting worse and worse, or better and better, depending on what side.
Beautiful thing. It's a thing of beauty.
It's been
at a certain point there won't even be Lloyd. There'll just be hair. It'll be cousin It.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
The box.
That's what I'm going as for Halloween this year. So I had to start early to get that. No, it's been a crazy week. Good thing nothing else happened in cloud gaming at all, because my personal life has just been crazy. And it's also minus 40 Celsius with the wind chill today, which is the magical temperature where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet in the middle for like pain. So it's been a great day.
But luckily not around your chin, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a balmy 30 degrees Celsius on my chin. Everything else is freezing though.
Chase, how's your week been, my friend?
Like Lloyd said, nothing really happened this week. So, it's just been it's been a slow week. No, but I mean, it's been a good week overall. And I'm ready to get to the weekend. The Super Bowl's tomorrow, and then we're on to another week. And
That's what you want, Duncan. You've had a great week, of course.
I've had an awesome week. I have just been outstanding this week, and nothing's happened at all. Yeah, again, if you take just personal side, it hasn't been a bad week for me. Just chilling out and relaxing. Other stuff, it's been interesting. All right.
It has indeed been an interesting week. So, gentlemen, the question today, as we inspired at the top of the show, is: Google is out of game development, Amazon's in. What does this mean for the rest of us? Let's start with you, Avery.
So, it's been a week, you guys. It's been an interesting week, and I've been thinking real hard about this, because every last one of us on this panel has shared plenty of our thoughts all week long on this. But there's kind of been a point that I've landed on that is the most positive nihilist take that you're ever going to hear on this. And that is that none of us have absolutely any control whatsoever about what's going to happen. And so it doesn't really matter. Let's just enjoy the cruise. And what I mean by that is we are currently discussing, and what we're going to discuss today are the activities of $2 trillion ships sailing down this sea. And the navigators and the captains and the people on the deck are making decisions that we are not being asked to participate in, that will impact our journey down this river, but that we're not going to have any say over. And so both Stadia and Amazon have made some big decisions this week. One of them slightly more than the other. They swapped out the captain, and the other one just said we're getting rid of the karaoke deck. But we don't have any control over this. And so the place that I've landed on this, and we're going to discuss more about this as the hour goes on, is that I just want to enjoy the ride. I'm just going to enjoy the cruise ship. And if this lands, if this ship docks in a place of more games, more fun, more entertainment, better technology, fantastic. And if this ship docks in a place of, yeah, we're just not going to be doing this anymore, nothing I can do to stop that. Nothing I can do to change that. So I might as well enjoy the ride. I might as well enjoy the trip. So that's my framing on how we get into this discussion today. That's the perspective that I'm going to come from as we're discussing this more today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Right. Let's go to Clive next.
What's the question again?
I'm sure you know.
Yeah. Facetious. So yes. Now it's interesting because we're all on this panel and we're going, oh, it's been oh, what a week. Oh, it's crazy. Oh, what a week. What a week for who? Is the question. It's been a week for us sort of so-called Stadia content creators or, cloud gaming hardcore fans, or unfortunately, in the case of, some employees at Stadia, 150 odd employees at Stadia, a very difficult and emotional week, no doubt, when these things happen. But beyond that, life kind of goes on. It's important. So it's important to it's more important to some people than it is to the majority of people, put it that way. That's all I'm going to say in terms of, the drama around it. The drama is only in the world that we live in our little bubble that we live in. We, like kind of what they say on YouTube drama that's going on, it only exists in that bubble. So from that regard, I just think we need to kind of put it in context. But in the second regard, again, if we all want to say our piece on where we kind of landed, because I'm sure we've been through different kind of areas and routes, but the more I read it, the more I read the press release, Phil Harrison's press release, the more I look at it, it always comes back to the same thing. And it's all there in the press release. Yeah. Stadia is not going anywhere. Okay. They will continue to bring games to the platform, and they will work with partners on developing the tech and bringing great games to gamers. It's about the gamers and it's about the partnerships. It's all there. In fact, they sort of reinforce it and they say it twice. So a lot of people have kind of run off and made a lot of noise and then followed narratives that they want to follow and asked the questions that give them the answers that fit their narrative and nothing else. And it's not particularly helpful. So, and then the other thing, just to sort of answer the question directly in terms of, address the question itself. Again, it's a question of semantics. Google are out of game development. Are they? What we mean by that is they're not doing it in-house. They're effectively outsourcing the game development. So I would argue to a certain degree, it doesn't mean that Google is out of the game development game. They are now in the game of supporting developers in developing games. So I would argue potentially that the question, again, as I always like to say, semantically, is maybe not entirely correct. And I'll give you an example is that I've talked about it before, but when I used to work for Lego, we were a games publishing company. We were a games publisher. It's not Lego's business to do that, but they decided they wanted to be a games publisher. And then after a while, they realized that wasn't their core strength. So they did a massive deal, as it turned out, with EA to be the games publisher of Lego games, because they realized, it's not their business, but they can work with other people whose business it is to kind of maximize the value, in that case, of the IP. And I think here, this is, a decision that Google's made. So I don't think they're entirely out of the game development industry. They're out of developing it within their walls, whereas Amazon have chosen to continue to throw money at it, relentless, and good luck to them.
Great stuff. Thank you, Clive. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're playing gaming bingo at home, you can tick off Lego on your card, as we just briefed it. And now, Chase.
Well, so for me, I have a different take and a divergent take on this one, and I'll lay out my points of where I'm coming from on this. And I do want to set this up by saying I am a consumer advocate. My focus is very much different from the gamer. Is very much different from even sometimes just strictly business, because just because it's a business doesn't mean that it's doing right by a consumer. And I think one of the things that I look at in this is I think every consumer perspective, use case, purchasing decision matters. So for me, I think to say it isn't a week that didn't matter to anyone is kind of disingenuous, with all due respect, in my opinion. It may not be that it was a week to you, but it may have been a week to someone else. There are consumers still on this platform. We have to remember that. We have to step outside our bubbles. As Clive said about content creation, I agree with that. But we need to step outside our bubbles and remember, with all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, that there are consumers out there that this did matter to them. And in the blog post, I want to point out an important quote, because I reached out to somebody in the and I want to bring this back to Amazon. I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can because I don't want to take up too much time because we only have an hour. But I reached out to a friend of mine that I have respected for years, 15 years in the PR marketing side of the house. They looked at this press release and they said, number one, who approved it? Absolutely, for a consumer-facing statement, not great. And you don't leave your consumers to the bookend of a press release. The press release, when you read it at its face, and you don't try to find your own reasons behind it, you read it at its face, it is a very much a business-forward press release, because Google at its heart is a business-to-business entity. And the quote that is important in this sums up the entire blog post, is this one sentence. And you really have to pay attention to the last word in the sentence. I'm going to read it to everybody. In 2021, we're expanding our efforts to help game developers and publishers take advantage of our platform technology and deliver games directly to their players. Not us players, their players. Which has led a lot of individuals throughout the entire gaming industry, not just one or two people, to come to the conclusion that they're moving towards licensing. Now, in saying that, that doesn't mean that they're not going to persist with Stadia. I think Stadia will still persist in some form, just like Android does. Now, to Amazon, and let's not let them off the hook. They're not victims and they're not angels. They've had a gaming development core for 8 years that has had one game that got completely canceled in Crucible, and another game that has been delayed multiple times in New World. And in that, they have mismanaged multiple situations and funds. And you now see a divergent path of where you have a new CEO coming in, which is in Andy Jassy, who was over AWS. And he's trying to set the course straight over at Amazon. We'll see what happens in time. But it's interesting that one company's focused heavily on the cloud. They've made a big statement in that. And maybe the other is they're trying to change their path. And I want to leave everyone with this last thought before I go. There was a really good podcast from Chrome Unboxed, from Robbie Payne. I highly respect him. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that podcast, he has a deep knowledge of Google on the business-to-business front and explains where Google and their thinking has been historically. And Stadia is not exempt from that historical pretext and that historical precedent. So I really encourage everyone, if you haven't had a chance to listen to that podcast, it does give some insight. And that podcast was from yesterday on February 5th.
Excellent. Thank you, Chase. And now over to Lloyd.
I unmuted this time. I'm learning. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. We got a little bit of a tone deaf blog post from Google. To be fair, that wasn't their Google blog or their Stadia blog. That was more their corporate relations blog. So you can write off some of the language used because of that. Not all of it, but some of it. Just because when you're talking as a corporation to shareholders and other high level executives, use some language that you wouldn't use if it was a completely customer facing report. There's no follow-up, which is a bad thing to me. And then you had the other side of the coin where Amazon announces that there's going to be a new CEO, and the CEO comes out and says, yeah, I think we can really do a good job if we stick with it. So they threw some ifs into their statement as well, and it's just like, okay, what's happening in the cloud space? It's been a really weird week. My main console, I have them all except PlayStation 5. I haven't been able to find one yet, but I have all the consoles. My main console that I play on is Stadia, because I love the convenience. Played on my TV, played on my phone, played on my tablet, played on my screen that's right in front of me. And having Google cancel the first party development is disappointing. But no one knew what they were working on, so it's not like my favorite IP of all times is now not coming to Stadia. So I'm not too worried about that right now. Of course, it sucks that people lose their job, all that stuff. I'm not talking about the people part of this equation, because that is a huge part, and it does suck when people lose their jobs for sure. But I was chatting with a buddy a little bit, because he was a little bit dejected about the whole thing, because he was hoping to get a lot of games that are coming out in the future on Stadia, and he said, well, this sucks. And I was like, well, what's better for a corporation? Let's throw out a number. Let's say 150 people plus the studios plus the buildings plus benefits plus everything that comes to doing business. Let's say it was $25 million a year. If a game takes 3, 5, 10 years, you're going to be throwing that amount of money at it with no fruit to your work. There's going to be nothing to show except for a trailer or some screenshots or something until the game ships. This is new, because we've never seen anything from Google as a studio. So I said to him, I was like, well, what's better? Is it better for Google to throw potentially $125 million over 5 years at this, or to take a step back, say, maybe this was the wrong thing to do, and instead take that $25 million a year. I like round numbers. It's probably not that amount, but just work with me on this. Take that $25 million and say, hey, 25 games that we really want. If we give them $1 million, we could get that on our platform. So you got to think that what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, where Stadia was essentially the only platform that you could play it on day one, minute one. They saw how excited the user base, the current Stadia user base, and a whole new set of users were, and I think in some spreadsheet somewhere, the benefits made it so, hey, let's get rid of first party, let's dole out this money to third parties, let's get the games ported over here, and then we'll deal it that way. Of course, no one knows what actually happened behind the scenes. I've heard from a few different friends and colleagues that have some knowledge of what's been going on, and I've heard both sides of the coin. And that always happens. I've been covering the games industry for about 20 years, podcasting and blogging, and you'll get an email, a random email from someone that you've talked to before, and they're like, yeah, my boss sucks, the project's doomed, this, and then you find out that was only that one person's opinion of what was happening, because everybody kind of has their own little world that they live in, which is all part of the bigger world. So I'm taking everything that is coming out from people that I know and rumors that I'm hearing in blogs with a huge grain of salt, with a salt lick size grain of salt, because we really, really don't know. Personally, for me, I'm going to keep supporting the platform, playing my stuff on it, because that's what I want to do. This is the platform I want to play on. And I'm not going to let the distraction of no first-party games that I knew nothing about impact that at all. That's the Stadia side. Amazon side, I mean, they bought Twitch. You better hope, if you're a fan of Twitch, that they stay in the development game, or they stay in the games industry game with the new leadership. Because if they get out of gaming, that's getting out of Twitch, that's getting out of Luna, that's getting out of a lot of other things. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is we don't know what's happening. Speculation is fun, but speculation can also be damaging. So I'm taking the stance where I just want to back up a little bit. I want to just enjoy what we have, when we have it, and if there are any changes, I'm going to be focusing on reporting that down the road. So it's not a sky is falling type situation right now. It's disappointing and potentially troubling, but I'm not going to come out and say I'm not going to come out with a black or white opinion about what's happening. I'm going to let things continue on until we get some more news. And I hope that next week we get better communications from Google, and we get more communications from the other players in the cloud industry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lloyd. Over to you, Duncan.
Okay, here we go. And first of all, I want to start off with 2 points before I even talk about Stadia and Amazon. Explanations of things. When we're talking about things, we usually just scrape the surface off it. For example, if people are going to start a debate about the solar system, you'll just say that there's these spheres, planets are spheres, and they go around the sun. But then you dig in a bit deeper and you round it out that the planets aren't actually spheres, they're actually squashed out a bit and they're not perfectly round. And when the planets go round the sun, there's not actually a circle, it's an ellipse. It's just there's so much extra deeper points. A lot of the time, we don't actually have time to actually go through what our big thoughts in, and we just talk at the very basic level with lots of broad strokes. If you want to listen about something about this, if you go look into Dr. Ian Stewart and the Learning by Line, where you actually break down the bigger points into basically smaller, more broad points, and then you expand out. I think that's been happening this week. And the second thing is something what Chase was actually touching on now, in confirmation bias. And I think everybody in the world gets this. Because it is actually so hard not to, and we all try not to. What I try to do to stop myself doing it is to get into debates with people. And if you don't agree with me, that is absolutely fine. But we all need to be aware everybody has confirmation bias. So I don't mind people saying, Duncan, you're wrong. And because I know I'm wrong a lot of the time. So come and do that. So again, I'm just putting these out there before I start this. Okay, now on to Stadia. I have seen my thoughts during the week on numerous different places, and there is no way to spin this other than it is bad news. And I will say it again, and I'm not backing down on this, in my opinion, and this is in my opinion. Rokk wants me off because I am going to say negative stuff.
That's it. You're out of here, Duncan.
I'm out of here.
Duncan, you have no authority here.
Yes, but go away, Duncan. No one wants you here. We want your thoughts. We're in this cocoon here, and we just want to go positive. No, I'm just going to say it again. For me, Stadia is dead as we know it. I'm going to say the words again. They have been quoted many times now and thrown back at me. And that, in my opinion, that is what we're on now, is the long goodbye to Stadia. There's just so many reasons why I think that. And we have discussed this on here over the last couple of weeks. Stadia, the way that blog post was put out, is just like GeForce Now and Luna, Boosteroid, any of these other sort of cloud platforms with a couple of extra hurdles. You have to port it to Stadia. We have all, sorry, I will rephrase this because when I'm talking generally, when I say we all, I'm not actually meaning everybody. I mean, the majority of people have said that are in agreement with that it is easier to get games onto GeForce Now and Luna because of the architecture there. So we have got into big heated debates about that, and now because the Stadia's shift to that pattern, and it's just going to be a place just to drop games. We're not going to have any more exclusive games, which they're making themselves, just so people, just so I can get my words right here, because I've got an awful thing where I don't follow up on what my full point. It is just we just have to keep an eye on that they will not have any of their own produced exclusive games. And unfortunately, with that, this is going to draw the focus on the Stadia's weakest part at this moment in time, and that is the game library. In Stadia's current form, every major third-party title and indie title going forward needs to be on the service if they're going to continue in its current form. If Resident Evil doesn't come on, Robin Hood doesn't come on, Prince of Persia, Mass Effect, Little Nightmares 2, Battler Wonderland, It Takes Two, Biomutant, Braid. I'm just going through a list of games which are coming out this year. If they're not on Stadia now, what is the point of Stadia? Because they are missing out on the games now, and they don't have the fallback that they're going to bring their own first-party games to the platform. Then the calls of, yes, I came up with this. I am sorry for both of these terms, but they seem to be starting to stick now. We have Logo Gate is going to rumble on until this gets sorted. And sequel gate. I'm not sure if anybody else has noticed out there, there's now a trend that sequels are not coming on to Stadia. We've touched on that a while ago. Just so people know, I am not naive to think that Stadia is going to get every game going forward now under this new arrangement. I know they're not. I think it's plain to say that they aren't going to get every game. But this shift now that they are they're not going to be bringing any first party, and it just brings on to the focus that they do need to get every game going. Now we move on to the real closing down of Stadia games, and then was a big, massive blow. But more importantly, it was the R&D has now disappeared. Again, I don't want to be really, really hard on Stadia, believe it or not. Both Microsoft and Amazon are pushing machine learning on their platforms. And the likelihood is both of these companies are going to be approaching the people who have the R&D department. Over this last week, Stadia is losing people, and they're more likely going to be strengthening their competitors in the cloud gaming field. So you're weakening your competitors, you're weakening yourself and making your competitors stronger. Also, this is just another side note here. During this week, Apple has been out looking to try and snap up people who have been affected by this. So this is another company to keep an eye on the cloud gaming sphere. Before we talk about Amazon in particular, this is just something else to note. Both Microsoft and Amazon have gaming at their top table. Consoles like Experience, consoles need to be at the big table if you're going to compete, and Stadia is a console-like experience. And it is just really clear that Google is not actually putting Stadia up there at the top table. It's like nearly a side note to them. But Microsoft and Amazon are doing this, and you can just see this over this past week. Firstly, with the Amazon announcement, their new CEO, the first major piece of information which has been leaked and came out from Amazon on their new CEO, gaming is a big priority to them going forward. On the sadder news of the week, we have the person over at Bethesda had passed away, which is bad news, but Nadia said that, I can't say his name, the head of Microsoft actually tweeted out, this is the person who is above Phil Spencer. Gaming is center to both Amazon and Microsoft going forward. So I will be slightly positive here, which is going to shock a lot of people. The only way I can see Stadia surviving now in the short term is to switch to a subscription model, as much as people know. Again, I will games on Stadia now, and some people on our panel here and a lot of people out there in the chat and Twitter have also said it before, they are not going to buy games on Stadia until things improve or there's a roadmap. This is a real big concern, because if you're developing a game and if they want to stay in this space, people need to buy games. Gaming is a business. You cannot get around that. Also, I've seen a lot of talk about Stadia getting second-party exclusive games. I think a lot of people don't realize the costs involved in getting on these second-party exclusive games, because you're not just paying for the development, you're paying for them for what they would have made on that. So you're basically, as Donny said on Chase's show, he put it so much more elegantly than me, because I'm brilliant at this talking malarkey, that you are paying to stop. You're basically buying, or when you're buying the game, you're actually buying the lost sales on the other platforms as well. So with the losing of the first party games, this is actually putting Stadia's negotiating powers in a much weaker position. Okay, yes, I will wrap up now. Move on to Stadia now, on the Amazon. Amazon coming out there first. Again, the first major announcement by the CEO is gaming. Gaming is not number one. It is really big priority there. And with the new Amazon CEO being with AWS, Amazon Web Services, excuse me, that he understands where the cloud gaming space is going, and him actually going, oh, here we go here. Sorry, I'm just all over the show. I'm just really excited about this topic today. With the Amazon CEO promoting games, will be a big focus for them going forward. And again, I think a lot of people don't actually know that Amazon have already got their second party games in place already. So in my take, I believe Stadia is on the long goodbye, and it's going to go to the business-to-business model. And so people will just use Stadia as a back end. So you'll see Activision Cloud Gaming, EA Cloud Gaming using possibly the Stadia solution, and Stadia as a brand is gone because of so many issues. The brand is tainted, while Amazon is just coming out fighting, pumping all that money in. It's not even you're throwing good money after bad just to get a foothold into this. So I will just chuck it back so everybody can jump on and say I'm wrong.
Thank you, Duncan. I think you broke a new world record there for talking without a breath of air. So congratulations for staying the same color. Right. Avery, would you like to pick a point?
Yeah. Where to start? I do actually want to address something that came up in the chat very quickly after we got started, almost as a point off of mine and Clive's pieces, putting me and Clive back to back, where basically we have the same keep calm and carry on attitude, which is not terribly American, but is terribly British. No one in the community, and I say this with sincerity because I've spoken to literally 40 plus creators in the past week, thanks to the Team Stadia project. No one in the community is dismissing anyone's fear or concern about this issue that's happening. And I say that because I think everybody needs to hear this. There are plenty of us who believe that this was yet another week in Stadia's history and we're all going to move on. That doesn't mean that the people who are experiencing FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the FUDs, the people who are experiencing that their concerns are unfounded, or that their concerns are insincere, or that the creators who are not experiencing that are dismissing them. And I think that's very, very important to hear, because yes, if you believe that, as Duncan does, that this is striking the death knell for Stadia, and this is the first step on the road to its end, and you are personally invested in the platform, whether it's financially, you've spent money, you've bought $100, $200, $400, $800 worth of games on it, or emotionally, this is a place where you've made friends, this is a place where you found community, this is a place where you've developed a hobby that you treasure. it's reasonable for you to not want that to go away, or for you to not want to lose what you've invested in. That's completely reasonable. And that's why I think that there is value in the balance of opinions that say, you know what, maybe point in the right direction. Maybe this is the beginning of the end for Stadia. And if that happens, as I said at the beginning, we're all on this ship together, and eventually it's going to dock. And if that's the end of our cruise on this particular cruise line, we'll find another one. There's a green platform and a purple platform and a blue platform and a red platform and whatever color Shadow uses. So there are plenty of other places for us to play together.
Yeah, I just want to jump in with a couple quick things. People are saying that a platform without an exclusive is dead. I don't, or sorry, with a first party exclusive is dead. And I just don't agree with that. We lived forever in console years where there was pretty much only console exclusives, because consoles wanted to get you to buy their $200 box. They wanted you to have a Super Nintendo to play Mario RPG, and they wanted you to have a Genesis to play Sonic the Hedgehog. They wanted you to have a TurboGrafx 16 to play Bonk, although 7 people did that. So that explained why the TurboGrafx.
Bonk is great.
Bonk's a great game. I joke about Bonk. But you look at other places in the industry. Apple came out with an ecosystem. They came up with one game. They made a Texas Hold'em game, and they sold it for $10 for like 6 months, and then said, "Yep, this is hard. Let's not do this." And then they opened it up for everybody else. Same with Android. Android's had a store open for just as many years, and Google hasn't made games at all, as far as I know, themselves. And then you look at Netflix. They went from a let's ship you DVDs in plain old mail to let's stream for you. And they started that, doing the Netflix streaming. And it took 6 years and some change before House of Cards came out. And they're like, okay, we made enough money. We built enough subscribers. Let's come up with our own thing. And House of Cards was a brilliant show, and it did so well. But you can't tell me that if House of Cards failed, that they would have continued on with their original program. They would have said, okay, let's take a step back and let's go into it. So Google is so different with what they're doing with Stadia, because they're not a game company that is deciding to make a console. They're a technology company that is deciding to make game console. Right. So you have to look at how Google develops things. They throw a couple engineers at a problem. They quickly iterate daily to get something that works. They throw it out there, and it's great. Most of the great Google products were all done during your free time. So you had like 20% to work on something, and all the really great innovative products were done that way. But most of the core Google products are pretty boring when you look at them. They're great for what they are, but they're pretty boring. They're not super snazzy. So I think we have to look at Stadia as not your standard gaming console, because it's not. Not your standard gaming company, because it's not. And the whole getting rid of first party development for now, I just don't see it as a big deal for the platform right now. Just because they stopped today, we don't know what was going on with those studios. Maybe they missed multiple milestones, multiple deliverables, multiple everything. Maybe Jade Raymond and Google had they didn't see eye to eye at all. Maybe that is part of it. We don't know, and I'm sure those stories will come out in many years. Probably not many weeks, probably many years. We'll find out kind of what happened. But just because Google's out of first party development today doesn't mean they're going to be out of it in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Buying second party exclusives for indie games would be a very cost effective way for Google to do this. You get a really popular indie game that won some PAX prize or some other indie game jam prize. Google says, hey, we want to fund you. You're 2 people. We'll give you $150,000. You can work on it for a year. If you ship it, we'll pay you X number of dollars, whatever those deals are. That is a very cost-effective way to do it. Not every exclusive game needs to be a AAA $300 million budgeted game. So I just want to push back a little bit on you're dead if you don't have a first-party exclusive, because I just don't feel that. And back one other quick thing, and then you can jump on it, Chase. The whole white labeling Stadia, I think, is going to be kind of the last thing that they do. I think when they say that they want to work on partnerships with other companies, they want more Ubisoft Pluses, because that benefits them twofold. if you get, say, EA Plus, not only do you get the EA games that are already on Stadia as part of that subscription, whatever it's going to be, $5 a month, whatever, you can play them on Stadia. But then EA says, oh, this is free money. Okay, let's port all these other games. Let's get Knights of the Old Republic. Let's get this old crazy game that no one ever is going to play, but it's easy to port to Stadia because for some reason the engine works. Let's port them over. So you're making a business-to-business relationship with another publisher to get their games on your platform, which is it's almost like a parasitic. It's like those little sucker fishes that go on whales, because they're making money. Google's making a little bit of money. They're getting more games on their platform. And if someone doesn't want to subscribe to EA Plus to get Knights of the Old Republic, well, they can buy it for $15. And now Google just made 30% of that $15. So there's paths forward on all this. And all the people that I've talked to off the record have said, yeah, there's going to be a lot of work to kind of reposition the path forward. But no one is doom and gloom that I've talked to. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's so many ways that this could all shake out, but the whole exclusive thing, which is what pops up all the time on Reddit, on YouTube videos that you're there, I just don't see it as a big problem right now, because I don't know, the Xbox One Series X launched without a first party exclusive. It did pretty well. Xbox One X went like a year and a half before it had a first party exclusive that used the power of that system. It's not abnormal, but Google is just a very different company when it comes to development.
It's not doom and gloom, to your point. I just want to just lay out two quick things to Lloyd's point, because I want to piggyback off what I said, and I wanted to shorten my statement before because I want to try to give everybody else an opportunity. I didn't want to go into a whole crazy breakdown. I know, Duncan, a whole crazy breakdown, but just real quick, just two things. Number one, if you look at this strictly as a business decision, right? If you evaluate just on that premise alone, does the move make sense? 100%, 110%. You can't even argue it. It makes absolute sense that they'd be repositioning themselves. You can't speak in definitives or absolutes. I think that's fair. And I know everybody said that so far on the panel. And I don't think it's fair to do so. But in putting out that press release that they put out on Monday, if their intent wasn't what they said in that press release, they better come out and clarify that. Because again, there is strong language in there that implies that they are moving towards that. And it's interesting because one thing that Lloyd just brought up real quick is that Google moving those games onto Stadia versus just doing a licensing. Well, if you're a publisher, you got two choices there. You're going to pay Google 30% to put your game on there, or are you just going to go ahead and use the tech and license it and take 100% of the revenue? Well, I think for a business decision, we kind of know what the answer is there. They're going to go with 100% of the revenue and pay that licensing fee. And what you're already seeing from these conglomerates, same thing that's going on in video streaming, is they're setting up their own individual streaming services. You're seeing Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, all of them are doing this because they don't want to go through a third party and have to pay extra revenue on top of what they're going to reap for 100% of the benefits. And then they just pay the licensing fee for the infrastructure. And the last thing is licensing through the individual developers, right? It doesn't require them to push. How do I say this the right way? It doesn't require, if they do it in that way, that's where the IP battle is going to be. I know Lloyd was just saying a moment ago that exclusives don't matter in this situation, but I think, well, maybe not today. Maybe you're right. I think in the next year,
first party exclusives is what I said. Exclusives matter, but first party exclusives don't really matter right now.
Maybe not right in this moment, but come next year when the IP battle is happening, it's going to matter because what's happening with Discovery Plus, what's happening with Disney Plus, all of that is going to matter, and it will play into this conversation. And it's in the gaming's it's not exempt of this, right? What's going on in video is going to happen in gaming. It's going to be exactly the same type of battle. I just wanted to add that in.
My point about I'll just go into the third-party games here quickly. I will be quick this time, don't worry. Is every time Stadia's problem, and I have said it until I've been red in the face, which happens a lot, is content is king. Content, and more content. Just this last week, GeForce Now, here are 30 games coming to, at least 30 games week or this month were Stadia's. 30 games coming this month.
Stadia made a choice. This is the thing. Stadia made a choice that separates it from Luna, GeForce Now, and Shadow. It takes literally no effort for GeForce Now to put a game on the platform other than signing the contract.
There's also something else to that. GeForce Now doesn't get money from game sales. All they make money from is their $5 a month.
True.
So it's in their own best interest to cast a wide net out there because they want to encourage people to pay their $5 a month. If you have 5 games on the service or 500 games on the service, GeForce Now is still making their $5 a month, but the more games on the service means more money that they're paying as a licensing fee to these people.
Correct.
Their business model it's so different than anything else. I don't even think it has a seat at this table where we're talking right now, because they're Shadow PC. They're just a different version of Shadow PC where you're renting an internet computer to play a game on with a better video card than you have in your own computer. Luna and Stadia are the same thing.
Yeah. And there's a database somewhere where there's a game name and a flag, and all they have to do is toggle the 0 to a 1 to say let that game load on GeForce Now. I'm sure it's not that simple. I'm sure there's some APIs and things that are related, and there's but at the end of the day, you're just hooking in to an existing. It's the same with Luna. I'm sorry, but there's nothing special about Amazon Luna. It is a Windows AWS server.
Oh, there's more coming, and they've actually been a record on it. And at the very, very beginning,
Duncan, you sound like Giuliani sometimes. You say, "Oh, I've got more coming. There's more coming. I'm telling you. I can't tell you now, but I've got it all here. I've got it all here." Avery's right. Right now, Luna is just a subscription rental service, okay, where you get old established games. Now, if you like that business model, that's cool. But if you wanted Cyberpunk, you can't. The biggest game, as we've all said, the biggest game of the last decade or whatever, you can't get it on Luna. Why? Because it's a day and date game. Can you get it on Stadia? Yes, you can. That's the point.
What's next?
What game's
next? What game's next?
What do you mean? What game's next?
What game's
Far
next?
Cry 6.
Luna, GeForce Now. Luna, GeForce Now.
Yeah, but it's coming to Luna because it's on Ubisoft Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Outriders, GeForce Now.
Yeah, we're not talking about GeForce Now. I was talking about Luna.
This is the thing. We're talking about cloud gaming, and
I'm talking about Luna. I was talking specifically about you jumped in on Avery. Because you said, when Avery just said Luna's just an ordinary run-of-the-mill type, service, you jumped on him. Like he'd made a big statement. No, so I was just merely defending that point about Luna. Luna is just a subscription service like Netflix. Can I watch the latest blockbuster? No, nobody can watch a blockbuster at the moment. You can't go to cinema. But can I watch the latest blockbuster on Amazon Prime? No, I can't. Unless it's their thing, okay? So that's the point about Luna. It's great. I haven't got a problem with that as a business model. That's fine. It makes a lot of sense. Netflix and, it works for them and all of those. I get that. That is fine. But there is a distinction between Stadia and Luna in their business model and the way they've chosen, because they realize some people want to play the AAA games that everyone's playing when they arrive. Now, does Stadia have every single AAA game that's arrived? No, they haven't. But they have plenty. They've had plenty. Doom Eternal.
Every major AAA title of 2020 made it onto Stadia.
Call of Duty.
Except
there are
for
some examples,
the first-person shooters. Pretty much every other major title that was released last year made it on Stadia, but it doesn't matter. And here's why it doesn't matter: because they have the room to growth. There's absolutely nothing stopping anyone from putting a game on Stadia, on GeForce Now, on Shadow, or on Luna. At some point, Luna may go, hey, you know what? You search for Cyberpunk 2077 on the Amazon store. It says buy it on PlayStation, buy it on wherever, buy it on Luna. They've got the infrastructure, they've got the tech to serve it up, they've got the controller out in people's hands. Luna can absolutely go to a storefront model. Yeah. GeForce Now could absolutely go to a subscription model. They could partner with Ubisoft, EA Plus, whatever else, offer it right in the app and go to subscription. There's nothing stopping these competitors from doing it. But It doesn't mean because they haven't done a thing doesn't mean they won't do a thing. That's the thing that gets me on these discussions. Because we haven't seen a logo does not mean we're not getting the game. And we're only not, I've said this a ton of times, the day that a game is not coming to Stadia is the day the game released and is not on Stadia.
Can I ask you a question here? Because we're talking about Doom Eternal. Where are you going to play Doom Eternal next, or the next stream?
On Stadia, because presumably it'll be released there or on any other platform.
No, it's not. It's an exclusive now.
Hold on, just one
second.
second.
But I'm not going to play it on PlayStation. So is PlayStation written off? Duncan, you're saying PlayStation's no good because I can't play Doom Eternal on it.
But here's the thing.
Last of Us.
Chase, jump in.
Yeah, hold on. Let me bring us, because here's the thing, and I'm trying to kind of get us back to where we started. Our question today is, right, what is the difference between Google and Amazon? And where we started was we have one company that doesn't appear to be, and again, perception is 9/10 of the law. We don't know. Everybody's right on this panel. We do not know what we don't know. I agree with that 110%. But perception is that the higher ups are not aligned with where Stadia is at as of now, right? That's the perception. Where we have Amazon, and again, I said at the very beginning, they are no angels. They've been in this for 8 years. They have not produced anything where they have any say in this, or that we should be using them as some kind of a, what would be the terminology, guys, where we would say they are the blueprint, right? There you go. That's what I was trying to say. They don't have any point in this process where they should be at the forefront. I think both of these companies have unique challenges. Google figuring out what is going to be their mission going forward. To Lloyd's point, we don't know. We'll figure that out in the next couple of months. Amazon, it's great that Andy Jassy stepped in. He's like Satya Nadella, which is what Duncan was trying to say. He's doing the same exact move that happened at Microsoft. Will that be beneficial to Amazon? Because he said he's committed to gaming. It's one thing to say something. It's another thing to commit to it. We will see. So I think these two companies have their own challenges that they have to face going forward.
Just two little quick points. We don't know what Bethesda's going to do, how Bethesda games are going to be handled, because we don't even know if Microsoft's going to buy Bethesda. It's still going through clearing right now until I think next month, March something is going to be clearing. But Microsoft has never held their IP that has been previously cross-platform to just Microsoft. We know that they've never done that before because they bought Minecraft and everybody was like, oh my God, I play Minecraft on PlayStation. You suck, Microsoft. And they released Minecraft on even more platforms. So we can't assume that the next Doom is going to be a Microsoft exclusive until the game releases and it's a Microsoft exclusive. We can't talk about what's going to happen until we know it's going to happen. And it's the same thing. The thing that makes me just shake my head all the time is everybody is gives Luna a benefit of the doubt from when they started. It's like, oh no, they're working on stuff. But then people say Stadia's working on 400 games. They're like, nah, Stadia's going to be dead in 3 months. It's never going to happen. So can we focus more on stuff that we know? Data that comes out, blog releases, press releases, all that stuff. We need more. We need to focus more on the stuff that we do know, not the stuff that could be a thing or is a potential, because it's just as likely, it's possible, we'll say, it's not likely, that Luna could just shut down tomorrow. They could say, we're not going to make enough money selling $5 with channels. We're just going to shut everything down. We're just going to keep Twitch and that's it. They could walk away. Unlikely, but they could. So talking about what they're doing today and what Stadia is doing today with the knowledge that we have is probably the best way forward. And then we don't bring undue stress to everybody that's having these conversations in other places as well.
And hold both platforms to the same standard. And exactly. I think that's why I wanted to bring it back to that. They both have their own challenges that they have to face going forward. Neither one of them are angels in this.
And look, here's where I agree. Here is where I agree with Duncan. Yeah.
I'm Piers Morgan. I'm sorry, but you don't want. I have to.
Yeah, no, but a broken clock is twice right a day, Duncan. So don't worry about it. Here is where I agree with you. It needs the games. Okay, we've always said it, and it's always been part and parcel. And you're absolutely right. If we do not see Resident Evil, The Village, whatever, day and date, roughly, I'll give them a couple of weeks benefit. If it's, 2 weeks late, I'm not that bothered about it from that point of view. To me, that's not crucial, as long as it's within the realm of the general release date. If we don't see things like that, then yes, I find it hard to see how Stadia is really going to justify themselves as a dominant sort of place to play games. But we know they have 400 games in development. They may well have chosen to pull the plug on some of those games, which again, I get, because it's a kind of, they're obviously putting together, they're a data company. They've looked at the data and they've pivoted the business model to reflect what the data is telling them. And if part of that data says, do you know what, actually, rather than invest in 100 stacks on stacks on stacks, great game if you like it, right? Maybe just have 10 slightly bigger games, which of those 10 bigger games will give us a bigger return than 100 stacks on stacks on stacks. Okay. That's just basic business, and the data may be telling them. So you may well hear some developers going, I've heard, having read the same blog as the other person's just read, that I've also asked whether they've heard, who also read the same blog and said, yeah, I heard that as well. Who also read the same blog, said, yeah, I heard that as well. Right. See a pattern there, right? Yes, they may well be stopping development on a couple of projects here and there, but they have said there are 400 odd games. Are you telling me that they are going to miss, of those 400 games, none of them are the major AAA games, not all of the AAA games, but the major AAA games coming out this year? Statistically, that sounds like, well, it sounds a bit ridiculous that is not going to happen. So, and then, sorry, Avery, just one point, so that's just one point about the Amazon and the statement they made. So they, first of all, is it a coincidence that they made this statement or not? Because what Google said. Well, where did they make this statement, or who to did they make this statement to? It was as I understand, it was in an interview in Bloomberg magazine. And why did they make
somewhere else, Duncan, that you seem to want to confirm?
Well, but okay. Why did they make the question? Why were they asked the question? It's because the week before, Bloomberg did a number on them. Okay. So their response, in my view, is a response to the Bloomberg number that was done on Amazon, saying there is this massive bro culture. They are spending billions and not getting results. They've closed down these 2 games. I mean, all credit for them to keep going. Fair enough. But what I'm saying is Amazon's sort of bold statement to me was a response to that specific article. They were given a chance to respond to it, and they responded to it. Coincidentally, Stadia came out because it's the season of the financial kind of quarterly reports, happened to come out with something in that about first party studios and all that kind of stuff as well. And it's sort of been mashed together. But me specifically, Amazon responding about them committing to game development and that kind of stuff was a response to the Bloomberg article, which was specifically saying what a terrible job that they were doing.
And I am also going to agree with Duncan on something. Suddenly he's waiting for the hailstorm to come down. Duncan has said something repeatedly on this show, on his channel, on previous episodes of this, that is the truest single thing you could ever say about cloud gaming, and that it is all about the games. It does not matter which platform you're talking about. Luna, Stadia, xCloud, GeForce Now, doesn't matter which one you're talking about. It is all about the games. And we have to assume that the vice presidents and EVPs in charge of these platforms know that. We have to assume that they are doing everything in their power to make sure that they get as many games on their platform as possible. Luna has got to be, there's a spreadsheet on somebody's laptop at Luna with a list of all the games coming. There's a spreadsheet on Jack Buser's computer at Stadia, well, a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet, with all the games that are coming. There's one in GeForce Now with all the ones, and they're just toggling that no column to yes for whenever it gets approved. So I'll say it again, a game is not coming to one of these platforms until it doesn't come. There are catalog games that will make it to Luna simply because Luna has provided an easier platform for them to launch. There are games that will make it to Stadia because there are dev teams now at these organizations that know how to do it. They didn't know how to do it 2 years ago. They didn't know how to bring a Linux game with Vulkan into the platform. Now they do. Ubisoft has a whole department that knows this, or there's QLock that knows this, or there's other outsourcers that know this. So that now the acceleration can only be higher from here. But we're still in a phase with all of these services. GeForce Now comes out and says, here are 30 more games coming to the service. Do you not believe for a second that there are 400 more games in their pipeline, or that they want there to be? But they're not telling us about all of them. We're not going to find out about them until they're announced them. We will not find out about the next Luna game until Luna tells us about it. Tautology. I know. We will not find out about the next Stadia game until Stadia or the publisher tells us about it. We will not find out about the next Xbox Game Pass Ultimate cloud streaming game until they tell us about it. And at a certain point, we all just kind of have to let that happen and get to that point. We have to. The ship is moving down the river. There's nothing we are going to do to get ourselves past that tree down there on the horizon until the ship makes it there.
Yes, I'm actually going to say something reasonably positive here. Here we go. It's not about getting... when I've been saying content is king, I've also added on to that. It is not about getting all the games on the Stadia. It's about getting the right games on the Stadia.
Yeah.
I have made suggestions of what games they should do. I'm not going to say my Slay the Spire one. I will say a slightly different one this time.
Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania. Make Dan happy.
Not Sonic Mania, because that's going to be Microsoft's own speculation. But with that, Binding of Isaac. How awesome would the new Binding of Isaac be on Stadia with state share? It is just a very simple game which wouldn't break the bank, assuming what the budget is at Stadia. You wouldn't think it would break the bank. Add in state share and get a couple of YouTubers to play it and chuck it out there, and it would take off. You want to play the exact same seed as your favorite YouTuber, off you go, drop it into the chat there. This is why I get so frustrated at Stadia, because the potential was absolutely limitless, and now the potential has been handicapped by the closure of the Stadia Games and Entertainment and the research and development, because it's just going to scupper what the big cloud ideas is going to be. It is just very...
I'm not sure I agree totally. It's scuppered it. I think what will happen is it will develop more organically, right? Which is so two things here. In part of what Avery said about, developers getting used to the development tools to port to Stadia, whatever. One of the data points clearly from the press release, which you see, which is them expanding our efforts to help game developers and publishers take advantage of our platform technology and deliver games directly to their players, is working with developers to make. They have clearly seen, as many people have said, and maybe Duncan's right. It is an issue, or there are some blocks in the chain that make that smooth transition from whilst developing a game, or areas of that development process that could be improved in order to make it easier for games that you are generally developing across multi-platforms to also develop for Stadia. How do you do that? Stadia come in and they work with their gaming partners to improve that process. So that's one thing that they are, clearly they've basically said it to provide the best cloud gaming experience for our partners and the gaming community. That's been their vision from the beginning. It is still their vision now. So I think, part of this statement is exactly that. How can we improve? We will continue to bring all the games. We'll continue to bring you the games. We'll focus on the games that matter. Now, I'm not familiar with the game that you talked about, Duncan, and maybe they have a little matrix which decides, what games fulfill a certain criteria. They're a data company. Is it multiplayer? Is it, a big seller? Is it all these kind of things that we don't know what games that they're making those decisions, and we could debate which are the right games and which are the wrong games. But I think they probably decided to focus on having a process by which they do that. And then the second part is they work with their game partners to provide them with the tools to create good games generally, but also the games that can easily port and deliver to Stadia. And eventually what happens out of that is a developer goes, you know what, developers push the boundaries. It's not always the in-house studios that push the boundaries. Like Halo was by Bungie. Yeah. And GoldenEye was by Rare for Nintendo. Yep. It's better. So I don't think we've scuppered. We may have slowed down that process, but we don't know what they were developing. But I don't think we've scuppered the kind of pushing of the boundaries of what cloud gaming as a platform could do, because organically, I think it can happen where developers develop specifically for this cloud platform as they get to know the tools. And how do they get to know the tools? Because Stadia is working with their partners to understand the tools that they have and how to best utilize them. So I think that's why Stadia is here for the long run, because they're making sure that their platform is publisher and developer friendly.
The only thing sorry.
No, go ahead, Jassy. You can jump in. I'll go next.
Okay. I was just going to say, I just think, and I have to caution this again, that sentence that you're highlighting there, Clive, and it's not to say that I don't respect where you're coming from, but I think they're saying something that's pretty clear. If it was to us, the players on Stadia, they would have said that. And if you read further down in this press release, and I'm just telling you from a PR marketing standpoint, and if that's not what they meant, I know we've seen Stadia write things before where we've disagreed about how they've said something. They would have said it the way that they said it at the end of this actual statement. And I think there's two paths for Stadia, and I think we all still agree at this point here. Stadia as an application is going to persist. That will still go forward. There will still be some games that will come to this. Now, what that's going to be, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But them focusing on an enterprise solution, which is basically what they're implying there, is the point of publishers not wanting to have to pay somebody 30. This is the argument we're having right now with Epic, right? And Apple. People not wanting to pay 30%. Google doesn't negotiate, folks. They don't negotiate that 30%. So if a publisher has been arguing with them and saying, we're not bringing Call of Duty to Stadia because we ain't paying you 30%, what's the only other alternative to get Activision to jump onto your platform? It might be licensing. It might be to go that route. And I think we got to be real careful that when you read language like this, it reads as it reads. Like and I'm not trying to just say that to be disingenuous. I'm just saying they didn't say to the players of Stadia. They said their players. That means the publisher's players. If the publisher's players aren't on Stadia, where are they? They're fans of EA. They're fans of Square Enix. They're fans of Ubisoft. They're going to go where those games are through the platform. And that's the part that we got to get an answer to that. If that's not what they meant in this press release, we got to get an answer to that. We have to.
I think that specific sentence in the press release is just semantics. Like PlayStation doesn't say, oh, finally you're getting Call of Duty on PlayStation for PlayStation gamers. It's like if it's a cross-platform game, it's like you can finally play Call of Duty on our system. They don't say finally we are the blessed few that can have Call of Duty. So I think it's just a bad sentence, but I really hope they do clear it out. I really do. Just a couple things that have popped up in other chats and also in the chat room. People keep saying that R&D is canceled. R&D isn't canceled. One specific part of R&D was canceled, which was the R&D that was tied to the first party development. So that was R&D for machine learning. That was R&D for AI. And maybe it just didn't work. Or maybe the load, having all these specific servers that are just going to be there for AI just wasn't going to work right now. So they went back to the drawing board. It doesn't mean that type of R&D isn't going to continue. And in the press release, they said many times, we're going to be offering these people jobs in other areas. But if R&D was gone, that would mean there's no other Stadia development, because research and development, that is obviously still going on. So I don't think that's entirely true. There's still going to be R&D, but the very specific game tech R&D that was going on with SG&E was a thing. And like Google, they cancel a product or project or beta or flex time thing, and then that thing finds its way into something else down the road. Like the voice chat on Stadia didn't start on Stadia. It was used in multiple areas for like the last 10 years. In the seed was planted 10 years ago, and it lived on in a bunch of different things. So just want to be careful with that, because there is still going to be R&D going on at Stadia. Might not be great AI, so you could have an MMO with every single NPC being its own virtual person, but there's going to be other R&D. And just one little quick thought, and unfortunately I may have to run really soon because my watch is buzzing like crazy. We don't know much yet. Hopefully we'll learn more in the future, but what is going to open a lot of eyes, what is going to make me be excited or really disappointed and worried is GDC. If we don't see a lot of Stadia talk at GDC, which they've been there for the last couple of years, there's issues. There's still time to GDC, so we don't have to worry about that until we start seeing a lot of that stuff. But GDC will be a really good I don't know, barometer. There you go. That's the perfect word. It'll be a good barometer of what the industry sees. If no one is talking about Stadia at GDC and there's no GDC development tracks or how to get your game ported over to Stadia, that's going to be worrisome for me. But as the position that I'm taking, like I've been taking ever since, is we don't know. Until we know, we don't know. And I'm not going to talk about, oh, the Stadia's dead, or the platform is doomed, or first party means everything is going to be farmed out in white label, because we don't know. The possibility is that could happen, but we don't know. Just like we don't know whether Stadia is still going to be getting 400 games. We can only go with what Google has told us.
Good shout.
And it's easily possible. I will also say I've spoken to developers this week who themselves, after the announcement of SGE closed, were telling me, yeah, I had a great meeting with Stadia, the YouTube team today, as they were talking about the Stadia enhanced features. So we know that R&D is not done. It's the crazy stuff might have gotten shelved. And that sucks, because we'd all kind of like to see Project Chimera and the Peter Molyneux true delivery of AI and making a game world real thing to happen. But we will, and hopefully we'll see that. And it is easily possible that we will see that from someone else. None of Stadia's initial amazing features debuted on a Stadia Games and Entertainment second-party game. Stream Connect debuted with Ubisoft. Crowd Play and Crowd Choice specifically debuted with Behavior. Crowd Play debuted with Mortal Kombat, debuted with WB Games, or whoever it is that makes them. All of their features and Crata, the link thing that they said that's fake, and then Hitman did it for real. I can't even remember the feature. So none of the crazy things you can only do with Stadia platform actually ever came out because Stadia put them out. They came out because some other partner came to the table and said, I want to do this. Let's make it work. Let's come up with something awesome. I just want to put up one other thing. Sometimes the platform and the technology behind the platform is the thing that really matters. And I'll tell you the one word that proves that to be true: Oculus. Oculus does not produce video games. There you go. Oculus does not produce video games. They partner, they have exclusives, Vader Immortal and all those kind of things. Vive, whatever you want to call it, does not produce video games. They partner, they buy things for exclusives, but they don't produce games. And yet, one of the top selling gadgets of 2020 was the Quest 2, because it is all about the platform and creating a space where awesome content can be delivered. Netflix is a platform where awesome content can be delivered, and they are paying other people to make it. Yeah, and they have their original studios, but let's be real, they bought movies that somebody else already created. So nobody's out of the game yet. The only people that aren't going to be producing a video game are the art directors and music producers that were at Stadia Games and Entertainment. And that's sad. And I hope I'm sure they all do fine. I saw one of them post on Twitter about, this was fun, but now I need a new job. And like 8 different studios said, here's our posts. Come on. So Duncan, you had one other thing right here. They are now there is now 150 people, up to 150 people who know how to make games on Stadia and are going to get hired by EA and Ubisoft and Warner Brothers and Bethesda and all these other companies who want to bring their games to Stadia, and they're going to say, you're in charge of the port department, come on in. Because now there's a whole cadre of people who are available for that. And some of those folks might go work for Luna. Or they might go work for GeForce Now. And if they do, they're going to make even better Luna games and even better GeForce Now games. And cloud as a whole will grow and explode. A rising tide lifts all boats. And in this case, the boat, one of the boats sprung a leak. They patched it. We're still sailing.
Yeah, I just want to go back to something which was at the very beginning, or not very beginning, a wee while ago there about Luna. Why does Luna get a Bible? There's one
get a Bible.
No, Bible. It means why does it get a pass?
Why do they get a pass? Got it. I was like, why do they get a Bible? Because hallelujah. I don't know.
A Bible just means why are they getting a lot of slack? One word. Beta. And Google has its fans, which is great. Are we going to be fair and say Google has its haters as well? People don't trust Google. That is why they get a lot of hate towards them. People like Amazon. People hate Amazon. People like Apple. People hate Apple as well. I can't believe anybody hates Apple. Come on, Apple's the best. Come on, but yes, but I'm just saying.
Never liked Apple.
You've never liked Apple. It's what we were talking about at the beginning. Everybody has their natural biases, and they come out at all times. People try and control them and try and be balanced as much as they can. But people have a rod for Google, and they're killed by Google and all that sort of carry on. So there is lots of reasons why Google is not getting a pass like Luna is getting a pass at this moment in time. But I think a big, massive part of it is beta.
The number one mistake that they made from the beginning. Sorry, Clive, you're 100% right. That was the dumbest thing that Stadia did from day one, was not putting that stupid 4-letter word on their product, which would have saved a year's worth of headache.
And it's also all the people that assumed that Stadia would be the Netflix of gaming, and it turned out not to be. Now they're like, see, I was right. Amazon's doing it the right way. So there's a lot of that confirmation bias.
Just because you have a beta tag in front of it doesn't mean you're immune from criticism either. And I think I'm not saying that to just like diminish the fact that the term beta is used, but again, I'm just speaking as an advocate. You cannot let these companies just get away with something just because they've used the term early access, beta, trial. Like, you still are a company providing a product, and even if it doesn't have a price to it, you have to live up to a certain standard. Period. End of story.
That's true, and Clive, I know you wanted to jump in, but there's a degree to which if you're going through the checkout line at Walmart and the person has the new hire tag on, it's understandable if it takes them a little longer to scan your groceries.
Exactly.
And Stadia would have had the benefit of the doubt for longer. I don't know that they could have made it a year. I don't think they could have made it to like November-ish, good stuff-ish. I think they could have made it past the April broad launch, maybe, but I don't think they could have made it a full year wearing the trainee tag. But they would have avoided some of this a little bit longer, and that would have had the side effect of right now this whole thing is one continuous timeline with the start point of November 2019 for real. If they'd had the beta for however long, then they would have had a timeline that started beta, went up to release, and then the timer would have started over for real. And right now we'd be in month 6 of real or month 8 of real instead of months 14, 15 of real. So that would have given them a little bit more leeway. Honestly, I would have rather them carried a beta tag all the way up until this past Monday when they announced that decision and said, we're leaving beta. We've decided that as part of transitioning to a real company, we're not going down the make it ourself road. And that would have bought them that would have given them the breathing room that they don't have now, or that they can't claim for themselves now. Clive, I'm sorry. I know I jumped.
Oh, I've got something to say about Amazon after Clive as well.
No, just very quick. I'd love to compare Luna with Stadia, but I can't. All right. And the reason I can't
That's Clive's next Monday night video right there is just that motion.
It's in the US only. So, like, you know, people sort of override that, you know. Physically, I can't because it's only in the US. That's the point. In that, to compare the two is ridiculous.
There are only two people on this panel right now. Even when Lloyd was here, there are only two people on this panel that can tell you what Luna's like. And it's Florida man and Baltimore dude here.
Stay tuned. I'll be talking about it on Saturday next week.
Why is it? Why can't Clive play it? Because it's in beta, or sorry, early access.
It's in beta.
I'm just going to say this again, just to show how Amazon are really committed to gaming. What has happened this week is the new CEO has basically starting to take over. This could have been the perfect week to go. We are getting out from Amazon Game Studios. We are going to kill it. We are going to get rid of it because of the transition of the start of the transition of the CEO. But no, he has actually came out and said we are still committed to it going forward, because this has been on the cards for a while, and this could have been the perfect chance for them to go transition. We're just getting rid of it. You broom, all that.
Given the response to the Bloomberg article the week before. But yeah, they absolutely. Exactly. I mean, he's made the commitment, but that's what it was a response to, I think, ultimately.
Yeah. So,
and Dom said, "Oh, sorry, Duncan." Dominic said something in the chat that I think is the key word of this whole thing, and that is that Stadia is inexperienced in this. Bad is not the word that I really want to use here, but I'm going to use it anyways. They made, when they started, when they sat around the whiteboard and drafted out what is Stadia going to be, they drew a big line down the middle and they put Stadia platform, Stadia games and entertainment on either side. They made a choice at that time from an ambitious perspective, from a perspective of, we just hired Jade Raymond. She knows what she's doing. We just hired Shannon Studstill. She knows what she's doing. We hired Phil Harrison. And so they made this decision to try both, to give them both a shot. ¿Por qué no los dos? From the taco commercial. And it was a bad decision. It was a bad decision because they were inexperienced. They bit off more than they could chew. And for a company of their size, that's a bad decision. They should have known better. They had the resources to know better, but obviously they didn't. That doesn't mean that they didn't try. It's another thing I saw going around on Monday and Tuesday when this all hit, where people saying, well, Stadia just failed and they should have never done this to begin with and they should have known better. I'm like, they still tried. Well, you cannot tell me that the 150 people that lost their jobs this week didn't walk in to that office every day trying their hardest to bring a video game to the table. And Shay said it earlier, there were key milestones that they just didn't meet. And at a certain point, they walked onto the field, they gave it their all, and reality scored more points than ambition in that game.
See, I just want to leave this with this last point.
Yep.
And I think what was just said that Avery said is going to tie into the point I'm going to make. For those of you out there, I really want to say this, and even to this panel, if you haven't had a chance to listen to Robbie Payne's podcast from Chrome Unboxed, I'm going to tell you, it is an eye-opening podcast that talks about Google's historical context, not Google Graveyard. Throw that out. We're not talking about that. Google's historical context about realigning existing products and services. And when you hear what he has to say, it will make absolute sense to what we're talking about here. And that's kind of what I wanted to tie into it.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm sure you'll agree that was probably our most passionate debate to date. And there was a lot to chew on, and you've left some amazing thoughts for the guys in the chat to take home with them as well. So thank you very much. So we're just approaching the end of the show. Can I just go around? I'll start from you, Avery. Where can people find you in your normal week?
Absolutely. I will also be super generous with my little snippet of time and say Lloyd unfortunately had to go at the show. We were running a little bit long. And so please be sure to follow Lloyd at Dasme, DASME on Twitter. He has amazing observations every day. And he also hosts Stadia Cast on the Nerd Nest channel. Stadia Cast, one of the longest running Stadia podcast in the industry. And I got to imagine tomorrow is going to be a big old show for them. So they record
And congratulations, because they just hit 10,000 subscribers, which is no mean feat.
So we super applaud them. So go follow Lloyd as well. But as for me, you can follow me on Twitter at CharmCityA because I live in Charm City and my first initial is A. I'll be doing the community playground tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Stadia Source channel. Stadia Source, your number one source for Stadia news and reviews.
Thank you. And Clive?
Yeah, you can find me at Clive Illenden on Twitter and the Stadia Monday Night Chat every Monday night if it's not torpedoed by a major statement from Google 10 minutes before I go live.
God, I'm sorry. I was on a Zoom call with my CEO, my vice president, and all of the senior executives at our largest client. And I'm like, I have all my stuff down. And then about halfway into the call, somebody else is kind of saying something. So I kind of leaned over and I unminimized that window and was like, why are both my Twitter and my Slack on fire right now? So that was my Monday.
Duncan.
Okay, if you want to come and speak to me. I'm just laughing because I've had some interesting DMs this week. If you want to come over and speak to me, I'm at One to Escape. And since Avery has pushed his wee thing, I'm going to push us. We are doing our first GeForce Now play along this week of Rocket League. And that is tomorrow at 9 o'clock UK time, 4 o'clock Eastern. I think I'm getting this right. Am I getting this right? 1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 o'clock Pacific. If you want to come, just come and join us. And can I just say one tiny thing at the end here? I think hopefully what you see is we're all sort of in the same ballpark with a lot of stuff here. We're just at different sides of the ballpark. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, as we say at the beginnings, no holds barred, no platform unturned. So everybody's valid opinion is a valid opinion. And finally, and sadly, we have some news as well from Chase.
So chat and panel, well, you already know, but this will be my last episode of CloudBurst. It has been a honor and privilege to be amongst everyone here on the panel. But it is time for me to take a step back. So I just want to say, going forward for the panel, this is a great show, has a great discussion element, and I think it is absolutely worth folks' time to listen in and see what's being talked about. Love you all, and again, I will see you all in the future. You'll see me. I'm not going anywhere. It's just I just won't be here, and that's the best way to say it. There you go.
On all our behalves, including Lloyd, thank you so much, Chase, for all that you've put in on the show, and you will absolutely be missed. There's no question of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
do you want to just tell people where they can find you?
Oh yeah, I was so focused on giving the their statement. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Phantom UFC Fan. If you want to follow my content, you can just search The Gaming Advocate on YouTube. And the weekly content that I'm consistently on, where you always find me, is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Saturday morning coffee talk. It's very much a business, consumer advocate focused conversation. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Duncan, was there something you wanted to add?
Yes. Can everybody send Chase Man United gifts?
Stop.
Very naughty. So there you go. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back, of course, next week, minus Chase, sadly, but we'll be bringing a very special guest on. So look forward to that. Another burning question, and let's hope that it's maybe not quite as eventful a week as the one we just had. As always, stay safe and keep your head in the game, your eyes firmly on the cloud. Goodbye.